Shouldn't have to say it. Everyone should know it. But when it comes to a hazmat response, speed and accuracy are everything.
Speed and power, baby. Let's go.
Speed and power. Clarkson Farm thing. Absolutely. Speed and accuracy. Now that's a 908 thing.
That's the little black box. And now, if you will, the little red box as well.
Yes, it's why hazmat teams all around the world are trusting 908 devices. Their handhelds like the MX908 and the Explorer IR are absolutely changing the game.
Right. The 90X is one of those few devices out there that can identify Novichokes.
Yep, absolutely. It can identify Novichokes. It can do all sorts of chemical warfare agents, pharmaceutical-based agents, drugs, and explosives. And here's the key. It does them all at trace levels, which is beyond mind-blowing.
That is awesome. And I also know that the Explorer can identify and quantify over 5,000 gases of vapors in seconds. That's going to change the game.
Yeah, it's why 908 Devices is being trusted by more and more hazmat teams around the world. You guys can check them out at 908devices.com and upgrade your metering toolbox today.
Oh, and we're just going to go into the intro piece. Here we go. Hey,
good afternoon, everybody out there in podcast land. Episode 475 coming down upon us.
Unbelievable. And we are here once again with Miss Jackie Hart. How are you?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you.
I can't wait. This one, all right, so wow, it was what, maybe a half dozen episodes ago we got you on the show and we had a whole
I'm a little nervous to do this one because we ended the show and then all of a sudden there was monkeys breaking out of labs all over the place. I'm like, what's going on here?
I called it, didn't I? Yeah, I saw that article and I thought, you boys might be interested in this one because I should go play the lottery because apparently I can see into the future. So.
Unbelievable.
I can't tell you how many times stuff like this happens. Like we'll go send a team to teach something, and a week later that department will have that run, and they call us up. They're like, "We just drilled on this, and we just had the run." We're like, it happens all the time.
Well, luckily they weren't infectious monkeys; they were just regular monkeys. But hey, at least you guys knew what to do if they were infectious. So
yep,
absolutely. That is so crazy.
Run.
So this one we were talking about doing what kind of a biohazard nightmare that fell off a truck. Let's just say it happened in anywhere street, United States, or anywhere in the world. What do you got to worry about?
Yeah, what biohazard nightmare just fell out of that truck? It's a genuine concern for people in the transportation logistics sector and also for hazmat responders because they're going to have to deal with the biohazard nightmare that just fell out of that truck, especially if it's elevated into a carnage level. It's an accident, right? So it could just be that a bunch of packages fell off a truck and didn't cause any destruction or hold up and you just deal with the package. But it also could be in an accident scenario where obviously caring for the people involved come first, but then you have the clear up. And we just had a hazmat spill in San Diego about 2 days ago where the major freeway was shut for overnight into the commute the next day because 8 gallons of oil spill on the freeway. Right. So these can
Sounds about right for California.
Yeah. Yeah. They can't handle oil and weather and anything else. So, the cleanup becomes a factor. But with biohazards, you have a level of exposure potential that you cannot measure. Because you can't stick an instrument or a probe on a biohazard and know it's infectious like you can with chemical exposure.
I think that lands under the I ain't touching that shit category. Yeah.
So the purpose of today is to educate your responders kind of what to look for and some general precautions to take if they come across that scenario.
Okay. So how do we start to classify the hazards, right? Because as hazmat technicians, that's always our primary focus is figure out what the hazards are and then try to mitigate the hazards. So how do we even know that something's happening?
That's a good question. And it relates to the hazard of the material itself, the biological itself. And if you recall from our previous episodes, we discussed risk groups 1 through 4, one being the lowest, 4 being the highest. And there is a correlation between handling a lab hazard and transporting from point A to point B. They're not entirely aligned. They kind of bucket them into categories for transport to make it more easy for shippers and for transporters and for emergency responders to deal with. And so it's the shipper's responsibility to know their material and to classify according to the transportation regulations. And there are a lot of different categories depending on what you are shipping. So if you are shipping raw material biologicals, they are going to fit into likely 4 categories. If you're international, you could have genetically modified organisms as well, but US doesn't recognize that in their DOT federal regulations. But you're going to have non-regulated biologicals, which are no hazard to the environment or to people. So they will be in an unmarked box. And that's okay because they're low hazard. Now, they may be on dry ice, but again, by ground, dry ice isn't declared. And dry ice will dissipate. It will be in very small amounts in a very tiny package. So it's really not of major concern to hazmat responders. The next step up is an exempt human or animal specimen, which is something that has come out of a human or an animal that there is a minimal likelihood a pathogen is present. So something like a blood vial that's being shipped for diagnostics for cancer, a urine test, a drug screen, biopsy, tissue samples, very minimal likelihood it's not known infectious or potentially infectious. And that will be labeled as an exempt human specimen or an exempt animal specimen. But it's going to be very minimally labeled and very basically packaged to ideally prevent loss of leakage in transit. Again, not a huge concern to hazmat responders unless you get the contents directly on you. There is still an unknown factor there. It's still from a human being. I would still seek follow-up occupational health type treatment or evaluation, just in case. That's a just in case.
So really not much additional precautions other than your normal bloodborne pathogen that we would deal with in EMS and responding to a bleeding patient.
Actually, it's probably slightly lower than that because these are known not likely to cause infection. So you're probably dealing with a higher level of risk dealing with a sick or injured person who may or may not have an infectious disease. I mean, you might be treating someone who is ill with an infectious disease. That is definitely high risk. And the shippers have gone through the process of evaluating, is there a minimal likelihood a pathogen is present? And the answer is yes, to be able to ship in that category. Because then there's reduced shipping requirements, which makes it easier for them to ship because the hazard risk is lower. So again, you don't really need to worry about it unless you get it on you or in you. Then I would still seek follow-up because you still don't quite know what it is. When you get the next 2 categories are where you actually have a risk of infection. There's Category B biologicals, which is a potentially infectious material. And then there are Category A infectious, which are very nasty pathogens. High likelihood of disease, life-threatening disease, illness. These are your concentrated cultures of BSL-3 or BSL-4 materials, very life-threatening.
But now, this is not like on a UPS or FedEx or DHL.
Yeah, maybe. So certain carriers accept certain levels of category of hazmat. So the exempt human specimens possibly UN 3373 biological substance category Bs might be on a regular truck. Category A infectious will probably be on a dangerous goods contracted vehicle, which FedEx, DHL, UPS, they have dangerous goods services. So it might be a special truck, but it will still be on a truck. So it just kind of, it depends. There's my favorite saying again.
Right? when we deal with radiation and transport, there's a lot of heavy duty regulations and stickers and also packages that various radiation levels can go into to be safe for transport. Yes. Does biologicals has something similar where there's, you have your kind of your larger, your more robust packages that could withstand, the zombie apocalypse?
Absolutely. And I'll go through those in a second to kind of give you some examples of that. Okay. The one category we have forgotten about is waste. So biohazardous waste, medical waste, things coming from hospitals or labs that are covered, sharps, debris, bandages, operation, soaked, right? That has to be transported too. So there are transportation categories for clinical and medical waste as well. And they are usually in large containers. And often they are on a contracted waste vehicle. So if you see waste hauler trucks driving down the street, they're likely to be filled with bio-waste.
Like cellophane wrapped MSW containers. Are those ones on like a flatbed?
I am not.
I think that's poop.
Familiar with what an MSW container is. So
municipal solid waste.
There are lots of different types of waste. Municipal solid waste is probably a different category to biohazardous clinical medical waste because they are transported in bright red totes with giant biohazard symbols on the side.
Nope, not these.
No. So because it's a DOT or transport regulated, depending on your country or jurisdiction classification, they have to be prepared in UN specification packages. They have to be sealed, closed, tested, marked, labeled, placarded if they're in certain volumes. So it's very obvious if a waste transportation truck tips over on the freeway and a bunch of giant red biohazard bins fall out, that is most likely a regulated clinical medical waste transportation that went badly wrong. The good news is they look very biohazardous.
Okay.
So you're going to
from
know
a distance, you're like,
yeah. So
I just sweep up the packages.
No. And then you go to your ERG, which we'll get to, and it will tell you what to do. That's the best resource for emergency responses. We'll get onto that. But the waste packages are very obviously waste. What's trickier is the ones with the little tiny vials of nasty biological that you might not realize is a really deadly pathogen. So circling back, Mike, to your question on packaging, I'd like to summarize those different levels of packaging that is required for those different categories, because I think it will give you some assurance that the packaging is inherently designed in a way to contain that if something catastrophically goes wrong with that package. And that's a good thing. That's why these regulations for transport exist, because they do not want them to leak under normal rigors of transport. And we'll get to normal later because, massive freeway pileup may not be normal rigors of transport. But so we'll start with the easy peasy exempt human specimen, very low hazard. It could be a tube in a baggie, like this. You got a specimen tube, absorbent, baggie, box, label. That's it.
That's as secure as that package gets.
That is a compliant shipment.
It doesn't need to be because it's really not anything that's super hazardous. Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's the lower level. And then you get into the second level, which is a category B biological. And actually, the inside looks exactly the same. Vials, baggies, absorbent. But the outside looks slightly different. It has a triangle on it in a diamond. Well, not a triangle, a diamond. I'm losing my shapes here. And that diamond has the digits UN3373 in the middle of it. And underneath it will have biological substance category B. That is a category B biological. So for your HazMat responders out there, if you see a diamond with a UN3373 fell off a truck, that definitely contains a potentially infectious biological, but it is not a death virus. It is not going to immediately infect the entire population. It's probably a infectious, just a routine infectious substance, a BSL-2 material that can cause low-level disease that probably has treatment or vaccinations, that people are handling for scientific research or for diagnostics, right? If someone's sick and they're sending a specimen. Then the third one, with the infectious category A, you get a big step up. So I have some examples here. You'll see that all of a sudden, the box gets really a lot more robust. So this is the outer box, and it is multiple corrugated, right? It's really, really sturdy. It's going to be a UN specification packaging. It's got to have a tested certification. So it's going to have this UN with a circle around it.
Okay.
And then inside, it's going to have a whole layer of extra protection. Right, this is the internal container. Hard, O-ring sealed, leak-proof secondary container. Then inside that, you're going to have a whole bunch of wadding, padding, absorbent, likely a biohazard labeled material. And that's a good thing to look for as a HazMat responder. If something falls out of a truck and it has a biohazard symbol on it, it's almost certainly biohazardous, right? So even if the person has screwed up or misdeclared it, little biohazard symbol, beware, it's infectious. You got to take precautions accordingly. Now, you may not know what level of infection it is, but you still wear your PPE and you're going to do standard decon. So it's an awareness thing. It's there for hazard communication. So you put your tiny weeny nasty in here, and then you put it in this secondary, and then you put it in that giant box. And then on side of that giant box, it's going to be labeled as a class 6 infectious substance with a biohazard label on the marking and on the label. So this is a really good warning that it is a truly nasty infectious material that's inside that box. Now, what is the likelihood of this, and this failing? I mean, literally crushed by a forklift, maybe, right? It's very, very robust package. A very, very robust package. It's passed multiple packaging tests. And even if it's a glass vial inside and the glass vial breaks, it's designed to be entirely contained within tertiary packaging, triple packaging. So it's really, really unlikely to escape. And that's why it's designed like this. This is the regulatory requirements to prevent loss in transit. So that's good news, right? If everybody's supposed to do what they're supposed to do, they're going to have this triple packaging with absorbent. They're going to have potentially an itemized list of contents. You can actually get information of what that is. If it does escape, you can tell someone, hey, this is Ebola. Oh, crap. Right. And then it's got markings and labelings, and that category A infectious will also have documentation that goes in the driver's door. So there will be a HazMat bill of lading or something that declares what that material is as well. And it also is a requirement to have an emergency contact number on there as well, so you can call someone and ask what it is. So lots of layers to help you.
Did you know that in 2022, there was 748 preventable HazMat incidents in the United States?
As a responder, your top priority is safety and efficiency, but without proper training, your team's competency could be at risk.
At the HazMat Guys, we bring you tens of thousands of hours of hands-on experience to elevate your team's skills. Our trainings are customized just for you using the best equipment and techniques ever out there.
3 simple steps. You could be transforming your team today. Call for a schedule a call, customize your training plan, and then begin the best in-class training available.
Right. Don't risk settling for instructors that only have theoretical risk-based knowledge. Secure your spots now. Our training slots for the upcoming quarter are seriously filling up. They're almost booked. As a bonus incentive, if you call us before the end of the year, you are going to get a free complimentary premium subscription for everybody that shows up to the class.
And we just launched Volume 2 of the Nerds HazMat Drill book, so check it out for 50 new training drills and keep your team up to shape.
And mark your calendars for February 3rd through the 5th, 2026, not 2025. Join us for the Southernmost HazMat Conference in beautiful Key West, Florida. Connect with industry experts, learn from the best in the field, and enhance your hazardous materials mojo.
So train differently. Speak differently. Train differently. Visit the HazmatGuys.com/hire us to book your customized training experience. While you're there, join our mailing list and stay up to date with the Southernmost Conference and all things that are HazMat Guys. So if somebody's responding to this and they have to go, let's say these packages are spread out throughout the road, something opened up and they're just out. Would you say that, your typical level B ensemble would be appropriate for this, where you're not talking about bunker gear where it's got porous substances, you've got a hard plastic, you're on SCBA, you've got outer gloves, just to kind of get all these things assembled and together. You think that would be something you would be comfortable in handling these unknown packages?
Anything that protects exposure to skin, eyes, mucous membranes. And if it is a highly infectious category A, an N95 respirator will do the job. So we're not talking full SCBA unless there are other hazmats involved, because sometimes on a dangerous goods truck there are flammables or toxics, or it may not just be infectious. So you kind of have to assess, look at the placards, look at the bill of ladings, look at the package labels. I mean, that's why they are labeled with these labels, so you know what's in there. So standard protective gear that stops you getting that pathogen in your body, that is absolutely appropriate. And you can use the emergency response guidebook. I would say that is freely accessible to the majority of hazmat responders, right? You go, it's your go-to, it's useful. It's the nice thing about biologicals is there's one guide number for all biological responses. And that is guide 158. Burn it in your brain. 158.
Well, we've got a lot of stuff we got to respond to, not just biologicals. I'll try to remember that, but
yeah. Well, the good news is you don't have to look up 5 different guides for all the different categories. If it's regulated medical waste, it's 158. If it's a 2814, it's 158. If it's an exempt human specimen, it's 158. So that's great. One response for all types of biologicals. And that's essentially, you got to identify what the hazard is, which it's biohazardous, because hopefully the packages are labeled. You're going to wear your protective clothing that we just discussed. And then for a spill or leak, you are going to contain it, and then you're going to decontaminate it with bleach or disinfectant. It is very simple to use your bleach pads or your powder bleach solutions that you have on your trucks. Mm-hmm. And the important thing is contact time.
Yeah, so how long does that have to be on there for?
People don't know how, people think, squirt, 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 wipe, 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 we're good. That's not good, because certain pathogens are very stubborn and resistant to disinfectants. The minimum you want a 10% bleach solution on a biological spill is 15 minutes.
Good to know.
So just pour the solution on and walk away and let it air dry. And then it should be fine.
And just for clarity, it's 10% 10% bleach solution.
Yeah. So if you have standard household bleach, Clorox that you have under your bathroom sink, you make that into a 10% solution. So you take 100 milliliters of that stock and make it up to 1 liter. And that is a 10% solution, and you apply that. It needs the water present to be effective in decontaminating the pathogen. If you pour neat disinfectant on, it's actually not always as effective as having a diluted disinfectant. The same with alcohol. 70% alcohol works really well for disinfecting most pathogens, but it needs to be 70%, not 100%, because it actually needs the water to work.
Right, it evaporates too quickly.
Yeah, exactly. It evaporates, and the action of how that alcohol destroys the cell walls and cell membranes requires water to facilitate that destruction. The thing is, with neat bleach, you're getting into handling a lot of corrosives. You're making it's a bit more hazardous, right? And it's a risk of exposure to you handling bleach as well. So 10% bleach, if you have pre-diluted packets, right, you can stick that packet in a bucket and off you go, right? So figure out for your crew what your biohazard decon protocol is, use ERG to assist you, and then it's very simple, which is great. That's a good thing, that it's easy to clear up. You just want to be careful you don't get it in you or on you.
You just don't want to die in the
like
process.
anything else.
Good stuff. All right. Now, what happens when all this good stuff that you've been telling us about doesn't happen?
It's all well and good when everybody does what they're supposed to do. Now tell us when people aren't doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, so undeclared hazmat is a thing for sure. Every day, thousands of undeclared hazmat packages are transported, and often it's not because they just don't know. They don't know the regulations. So established companies who are working with biohazardous materials, hospitals who generate medical waste, they are very aware of the regulations. They have trained people. They are making compliant packages. And that's great because you know what's in them and they've done it correctly. And if they do it correctly, there's a very minimal likelihood of an actual release in an accident, which is great. But then you have people who throw vials in boxes and ship them via the mail or the postal service, or they hand them to someone to say, hey, can you stick this in the back of your truck and take it down to the blah, blah, blah? Or they just put it in an undeclared box and that goes wrong. Of course that goes wrong, right?
Murphy's Law.
You know this. Yep. So what I want to talk about now is how do you recognize if there is an undeclared hazmat biohazard nightmare that just fell off your truck, right? What are the key indicators? Well, they might have a biohazard symbol on them, right? They may not have followed the transport regulations and have the official, Class 6 label on or the UN 3373 diamond on them. But they might have stuck them in a box that has a biohazard label on it. Great. Well, that is a really key indicator that there's a biohazard in there, but they haven't followed the requirements. So you would treat it in exactly the same way as we just discussed with regards to protection against exposure, PPE, decontamination. Another indicator is if there are lots of little weird vials and they have names of organisms on them,
stuff in them.
Hepatitis. Ooh, that's not good, right? So you can carefully, without exposing yourself, use your eyes, have a look. What is in there? If it's lots of little vials full with bright red blood, it's probably a blood shipment, right? If it's got any kind of indicator, it's really, you've got to use your sleuth skills and really put your spidey senses on and say, oh, this looks really biological. Often they have dry ice in there because biologicals are
time sensitive.
Sensitive to temperature, right? They degrade with temperature. So they might be on wet ice, they might be on dry ice. And so if you have a dry shipment, it very well could be a compliant, non-regulated, but ultimately, are you going to take the risk? If you see a bunch of vials spread all over the freeway, undeclared, they're not coming back to the shipper. They are being discarded that day. Spray them with bleach anyway. Why not, right? As a precaution.
So as a precaution, treat anything that's an unknown as an A.
No, they're all kind of treated the same way. I mean, yeah, could be. It could be an A in there. That's the scary thing about this. You know, it could be an A. It could be an undeclared A in there, right? So wear your PPE, follow your decontamination steps, and if you do those two things, you're going to protect yourself and you're going to protect your the public, the people who are dealing with that incident too. And as a reminder, if you are exposed, irrigate, seek follow-up treatment within a 24-hour, well, actually, preferably 2-hour window, because certain pathogens like HIV have a 2-hour prophylaxis window preference. So in the unlikely event you are exposed, please do not ignore that and get follow-up treatment immediately. So, yeah.
You always blow the doors off, Jackie. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Hopefully not the boards of a truck where a ton of
No. Hopefully they stay nice and close.
Unbelievable. I guarantee you, I'm so glad to have met you again in Phoenix recently. I am looking forward to keeping this conversation going because we've gotten great feedback from everybody on the last couple of episodes. I'm sure this one as well. A lot of them have used it as a basis for parts of the SOPs. So good stuff. And I'm sure we'll have you on after the new year. But thank you once again for coming on.
I'll think of some more fun to throw you guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, no problem at all. I can come up with a whole ton of fun biological scenarios and send you more random news stories about, you know, rogue llamas or whatever.
That would be great.
Well, thank you once again for coming on, and we really appreciate your information.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.